In March of 98, I had a spiritual experience with a demonic being that lasted for hours. I went from being a die-hard gangster loving that life
I understand you were like, you realized you just weren't going to get made. You wanted to kind of protect your own, your own territory and your own thing, that your own organization that you had going. And the way to do that was to get made. And is that why you kind of went to Philadelphia?
Yeah, well, the story would happen, and I didn't go right away after my father was killed. That wasn't the callous. That didn't mean anything. It didn't affect my crew at all. The money I was making, if anything, I just glommed more my father's stuff and put it under my umbrella.
Right.
I hate to say it like that, but that's what happened. And
or it's going to be lost.
As soon as my cousin Ricky got better after the gunshot, we took him right on the street. We were all working to show everybody the strength of the family, because that was the main thing that I wanted to do. You can't lay down. You got to get right back out there. But what happened, I had a friend, Jerry Omet. They called him the Frenchman from Rhode Island, very well known. And he had a friend, Giggsy, from New York, Gambino guy. He says, Bobby, I want you to talk to Giggsy, and I want you to get into the Gambino family. So Giggsy came and met me. We explained everything to him. He set up a meeting. He had a meeting with Peter Gotti at the time. He was the acting boss for John. And but Peter said he couldn't help me at the time because it was already a sitting family in Boston that's in disarray. And I really don't think they wanted to get involved, to be honest with you. So another close friend of mine, Frankie Rossi, was in my crew, was in prison with Ralph Natali. Now, Ralph came out and Joey made him the boss of the family. So when that happened, Ralph and Frank were in contact. So Frank set up a meeting for me to go meet Ralph. I met Ralph a few times, and then I ended up in Philly with Joey. So that's how the connection was made.
Okay, so Joey Marlino set someone else up to be the boss of the family?
Yeah, Joey was always the boss of the family. Ralph Natali was his front guy.
Okay.
Believe me, because Joey called the shots.
Right.
And I know when Ralph was on the street, he respected him, gave him that position. But Joey had the crew. Joey had the strength, not Ralph.
Okay. But did you move to Philadelphia?
No, not at all.
No. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not positive.
No, that's not right to ask that question. It's sensible. But what happened, I'm up in Boston. I'm a boss up there. Everything's in Boston. So what Joey did, he made me a capo in the family. Ended up becoming a capo in the family and straightened my guys out in Boston. But we were a Boston crew.
Right.
None of my guys were from Philly.
Okay.
And we remained in Boston. But I used to go down there once a month, or maybe every few weeks. I love going to South Philly. I love going to see the guys. And I was going to get an apartment down there at one time.
Yeah, I was in Coleman Low with Marlino.
Yeah.
And had lunch and breakfast with him a few times, and basically spent almost all of his time working out, walking the yard, very quiet, talked to almost nobody.
Yeah. Well, he was a boss. He was careful. I mean, yeah. Joey I love being around Joey. We used to go out and do things, Joey was a good guy. He was a great boss, easygoing. And I really enjoyed being around him.
Yeah.
Really a good guy. He really was.
Yeah. He had it made in prison.
Oh, I'm sure.
He got there. His shoes are waiting for him. Guys are giving him stuff. He doesn't have to go to commissary. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I know.
He's not going through. He's doing different time than I was doing.
Yeah. Well, when I first got arrested in Boston, I had that same treatment. Maybe not as good as Joey. Huh. But once I got in the feds, no one knew me. Everybody knew Joey. I mean, the Boston guys did and local guys, but Joey Marlino is Joey Marlino.
Yeah. He's he's interesting.
He is.
So all right, so So I don't, I'm sorry, I'm still struggling with the benefit to being a made guy is basically you have protection, or these guys back you up. Like if there's a dispute, then you've got these guys to come to your, I don't want to say aid, but basically they back you up kind of.
I didn't need their strength in that aspect. I took care of everything in Boston. If there was a sit down or a problem, I take care of it myself if I could. If anything went beyond those boundaries, I would tell Joey and Georgie about that. But for the most part, they didn't have to get involved with anything. Did I really have to become a made guy? No, I didn't. I was
Right.
strong enough to stand on my own. But like I said, that was in my blood.
Yeah.
It was like I was on a mission and I wanted to be a boss. And to legitimize that, I had to become a made guy. It didn't matter what family you're in, because when I became La Cosa Nostra, it's all over the country. We're all brothers. You understand?
Yes, sir. So
Oh, it didn't matter what family I got made in, just as long as I got that button to straighten my crew up.
I wanted to let you guys know that I have a Patreon account. If you're interested in joining the Patreon account, it's got 3 tiers. The top tier, you actually get a different con man painting every single month. If you're already joined and you're already supporting me, I really appreciate that. If you haven't joined yet and you're interested in joining, I'm going to leave the contact information for Patreon in the description. Thank you very much for watching the video.
so
And
things
the original deal I had with Joey, I'm sorry, Matt.
No, go ahead.
The original deal that I had with Joey is I was going to stay with the family for 2 years, then break off and have my own family in Boston. That was the plan.
Why did that not happen? What?
Well, I got arrested in 99. But in
Who
March of
arrested you?
98,
Who arrested you? Was it FBI or?
FBI arrested me. We had an informant in the crew. Joey made him a capo, Ronnie Previty. Ended up sending them up to me. The feds couldn't get to me at all. I was really cushioned. And Ronnie was a capo in the family, and he ended up getting to me. And he had me sit with an FBI agent over a drug deal.
And you were on camera, you were on wire,
Wire, all that. Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah. I'm pretty much done because it was being pushed to get the deal done. To liven up some money down in Philly too. I thought that's what was happening with it. And it just, I had a feeling Ronnie was no good from the beginning. I didn't like him, but it was kind of forced on me. And I understood that. And, it was still a good business deal if it was legit, if they weren't feds. But anyway, that's what ended up happening. But before that, in March of 98, I had a spiritual experience with a demonic being that lasted for hours. Actually, I write about it in this book, From Copper to Christian, in detail what happened that night. And I went from being a die-hard gangster, loving that life, to the next day trying to see Christ.
Well,
to find out what happened to me that night.
Well, what happened? I mean, I don't want you to, you don't have to talk about it for, 10 minutes or anything, but what's the basic?
What happened is an event happened in my condo in Boston. A demonic spirit came to me. I was fighting this thing for hours. He showed me people that I killed with people that were killed in the war, coming at me with all my evils. And then I felt at one point that they were trying to come in me. And that did happen. But, I told them that night that I don't want you. I want to be with Christ. But I still wasn't strong enough to fight it off. So I had to call the church. My mother had a church in East Boston. She started years ago. A good friend of mine, Pastor Lewis, took it over. So they came up the house that night. Prayed over the house, got rid of everything that the thing touched. And I took the host that night. And I gave my life over to Jesus Christ. But the problem was I'm still a boss of the street. We're still planning murders. We're selling drugs. But now I didn't want this anymore. I know it was wrong. I seen evil. I knew there was a devil and I knew there was a Jesus. So when you see the truth and it hits you in the face, what do you decide to do? I could have decided to stay with Satan. God knows what would come out of my life on the earth, but what about the end? But I knew better because my mother had the church and I used to go to her Bible studies. So I knew a little to fight this thing off. But like I said, the church came, I took Christ, but nobody knew what happened. I couldn't go on the street and tell them I'm a Christian now,
Right.
you know? So I was still the boss and I still had to keep going. The crew had to make money. So now I'm praying to get out of this thing. I'm walking a toddling fence, going in and out, going to church every week. Still this haunting was going on during that time. And finally we got picked up. 15 months later, I got picked up. And when it happened, and they cuffed me and brought me to the car, I felt like a weight broke off my shoulders. Like I had this yoke around my neck, this heavy yoke. And
Right.
it broke off my shoulders, and I felt great. And I was smiling when they put me in the car. And then they shuffled me off to prison. But I felt, listen, I'll do my 10, 12 years, whatever, and go retire and go to Florida. I felt it was my way out of the life.
Well, that's not exactly like you. You had said in the interview with Vlad that you thought you were going to get whatever 5 or 10 years, and you thought it would be kind of a vacation, and
Yeah,
you weren't that concerned about it.
I wasn't.
But they were trying to give you. But then it turned into they're trying to give you a life sentence. Like it's not 5 or 10 years. It's hey, you're going to get maybe 10 years. But that's going to turn into a life sentence.
Well, what happened? Now I'm in there on this charge. When I got arrested that day, they arrested 4 of us in Boston and 7 in Philadelphia, including Joey. So what happens now, I'm in there and I'm trying to make a deal for 10 years. First, I'm thinking it was 3 kilos. It's only going to be 5, but they put a conspiracy on me. I was the boss, got the leadership, all that nonsense. So they want 10 to 12. Trying to plea out to the 10. My old partner was in there. He was a May guy in the Petriaca family. I don't want to say his name. And he told me, he said, Bob, did you hear this murder indictment's coming down? He picked up from his lawyer. He said, call your lawyer, ask your lawyer. So I did that. So 2 weeks later, he comes down with Marty Bedroll, and I could talk about that now because he passed away, Marty. And Marty was an AUSA in the Boston office. And he said, Bobby, they got you cold. All your friends are lining up against you. I know about one murder he told me about. And he said, they got you cold. Your friends are going home. You're going to do life. He said, you have to go talk to them. I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, I'll get you to 10 to 12 now, whatever they give you, but you're not going to get out. You're getting superseded. He said, when the next grand jury sits, you're getting indicted for murder. And it carries a life sentence. I said, okay. 2 weeks go by, my stomach's turning. I decide, let me talk to these people. Because now I'm the pincushion. All these other guys are going to go home. Yeah. And I'm going to go do life. Like a clown,
Yeah. And you got a 95% chance of being found guilty if you're innocent.
That's right.
If you're,
if you're,
how it works. Yeah. If you're guilty, it's done. It's over. And if people think, oh, they need evidence, they need like 2 or 3 guys to sit on the stand and say he was there and he did it and he's the one who ordered it, and that's it.
That's it, and it's over. And it's even more, they want the guys that ordered the murders than actually do them, because they're the ones that are in power and leading, and those are the guys they want.
I have a buddy in prison. He got 40 years. The 2 guys that committed the murders got 25 apiece.
Yep. And he got 40 because he gave the order.
He got 40 and he pled guilty.
Yeah.
Like that was the good deal.
Yeah. And they told me it was going to be life. That was it. Whatever they had on me, he didn't tell me everything. He was still loyal to that office.
Yeah.
So a few weeks later, I called them. They came down. I ended up talking with them. But in my heart, I couldn't be a rat. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit on a stand and talk against my friends. I couldn't do that, man. So what happened?
You're a better man than me. I'd have cut everybody's
Well,
throat.
listen, everybody got their different reasons.
Right.
I'm building a family. What am I doing? I got mad at the time. I made a mistake. So I started fighting with them. I got my superseding indictment back from them with all the murders and everything on it. And I was able to go to, I was under Rule 11 E1C.
You didn't stop the superseding indictment. They still indicted you?
Well, when you go in and talk and you admit to some of these things, they can indict you with that.
Right.
And then they want to give you 50% of whatever it carries. So they want to cap me first at 10 years and give me 5 because I wanted that Sammy the Bull deal.
Right.
But they end up capping me at 15 to give me 7.5. So anyway, a long story short, I couldn't do it. I started fighting with them, sending letters to the court, the FBI, everywhere I could. And they decided not to give me the downward departure. And in my deal, that meant if they weren't willing to give me a downward departure, I could take my deal back and go to trial on my underlying indictment.
If you guys didn't know, I also do paintings, and if you're interested in a painting, I'm going to leave my contact information in the description beneath the video. Back to the video.
They didn't like that. They went in front of the judge and said, he's a murderer, this and that. He said, you signed papers with him.
Yeah.
Community. You cannot talk about that on this trial.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's funny because when I had watched the interview and you were talking about this and you were talking about doing a proffer and you were saying that they couldn't use what you had told them against you, I remember thinking, oh, well, that's not how a proffer works. Like if you don't complete the proffer, then they can use it. But you're saying because your lawyers had them sign something stating they couldn't use it. Because
I'll tell you, you're a smart guy, and I know you can look this up. A Rule 11 E1C, that's what my deal was under. And it states, if the prosecution is not willing to give me a downward departure, I can take my plea back.
Right.
So their fight with the judge was that I was a liar. They were putting it in the paper. The judge finally said to them, tell me where Mr. Luisi lied.
Yeah, but you didn't.
Because if I lie in the agreement, now they could charge me with everything. The judge found that I didn't lie about anything.
Okay.
So when that happened, I took my plea back right away and I went on the cocaine charge.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes.
Vlad didn't get into that. So I didn't understand. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But, but that does make sense because I've known guys that were caught lying in a proffer agreement and then everything was used against them.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, that what you're saying makes sense. And keep in mind too, that, every agreement, it is different. It can be different, especially when you have attorneys. Like, for instance, when someone cooperates, they typically say 99% of the time they say, we'll consider it substantial assistance. And then they'll decide if they're going to do something. They don't have to. It's not a promise. Right. And they always tell you, well, they won't sign a paper guaranteeing that. But I actually know a guy and have seen his proffer agreement where they promised to recommend a reduction.
Yes.
Whether there were indictments or not.
Yes.
So it's not always exactly the way people think it is.
Really, I got to say the truth. I mean, they wanted Joey bad.
Yeah.
And if I testified against Joey probably would have got life. And I could never do that. And Joey knows that. He has no beef with me over that. The only beef they have with me is I did talk and, pretty much shelved. No one's going to deal with me, which is a good thing because I'm a pastor now. So I'm really not worried about the street. But, I went to 6 status hearings. You know what those are? Yeah. Finally, on the last status hearing, I fought them with 2 different lawyers. They said they were not giving me a downward departure. That was it. So I took my plea back and I went to trial. Lost, got 235 months the first time. Won an appeal. My lawyer said I was the first one to overturn a drug case like that. Won an appeal, went back, lost again. But if you remember in the feds, 2006, the guidelines started to change.
Yeah,
Remember that?
they started becoming advisory as opposed to being a mandatory.
Right. I slipped through the cracks. It was a freak thing because the stenographer had left the office and went private, and nobody was doing my paperwork. So we couldn't get the minutes back or the 302s, nothing, until my lawyer started pushing. This didn't happen until 2007. I slipped through the cracks. Now I go to trial. They find Joey the leader. They take 4 points off of me, even though I lost, and I got 15-8.
Okay. So it's worth it.
Yeah, 47 months came off, and I did 13-9. And I did my time.
Did you get halfway house?
No, that they couldn't give me, just because of the situation. That Boston really didn't want me back. And that's when my indictment came out of. And they told them, Justice Department, we really don't want him back here, and we're not putting him in a halfway house. It's going to be a problem. No, it's just a true story.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get the halfway house.
Listen, a halfway house is horrible.
Oh, I know. I know that.
If I didn't need to be in the halfway house in order to make enough money to get myself back on my feet, I would have rather stayed in prison.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I had a nice routine, you know.
A lot of guys hate it. A lot of guys don't. But they do need that chance when they get out to stop going back together. Yeah.
Do me a favor and leave a comment. I try and respond to as many comments as possible. And check out my Patreon and check out my Instagram and TikTok. And all the links are going to be in the description. And also, I appreciate you guys checking me out. See ya.